there it is. All righty. Okay, so welcome. Happy Groundhog's Day to you. Thank you, Gina, for adding this to as our starting slide here. This is Exploring Solar Dashboards for Non-Formal Educators, and it's the fourth in a series of six. The third in a series of 5 that we're going to be having where we look at solar dashboards and how we can use them in different educational settings. Before we get started here, I just wanted to let you know that we are going to be dropping quite a few links in the chat that are relevant to this training, but following the training, we're also going to be mailing out all the links, so you don't need to be clicking on them and copying and pasting them into another browser. You'll be getting all of those. And the first link we'll be sharing with you is that KEEP is currently accepting through April 10th nominations for Energy Educator of the Year. So you can self-nominate, or if you know somebody in both either the formal or non-formal setting who you think is an exemplary energy educator, we encourage you to submit a nomination. They're not super difficult to do. It's just a Google form. And we'd love to learn about all the cool things teachers are doing around the state. And as we begin here, we would like to recognize that the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point occupies the lands of the Ho-Chunk and Menominee people. If we could together take a moment to acknowledge and honor this ancestral Ho-Chunk and Menominee land and the sacred lands of all Indigenous people. KEEP is part of the Wisconsin Center for Environmental Education, which was created in 1990. And we are, as I mentioned earlier, on the campus of UW-Stevens Point. The vision of KEEP is communities making informed energy decisions now and for a sustainable future. And with you today is myself, Samara Hamzi. I'm one of the energy educators here at KEEP, and helping me out in dropping the links in the chat and really instrumental in so many things that we do as well at KEEP is my colleague, Gina Smith, who is the resource and resource outreach specialist for us here at KEEP as well. And our guest presenter is Carla Lockman. She has her BS from UW-Madison in zoology and biological aspects of conservation. And then she finished her master's in natural resources and environmental education at Point, followed by teaching at, or maybe concurrent, I'm not sure, but teaching science at Stevens Point Area High School. And for the last few years, she has been program leader at Boston School Forest. I'm sure we'll be hearing about that. But Boston School Forest is a pretty special place. It's 80 acres that was established in the 1930s. And between 1937 and 1958, it was students who helped transform it from agricultural land to forest by planting over 100,000 trees. And in the Stevens Point Area School District, every student pre-K through 10 goes to the Boston School Forest annually to visit the forest for field trips. So for those of you who are joining from the non-formal spaces, I really hope that you'll ask Carla lots of questions and learn from what they're doing there and that they've been doing so well for nearly a century at Boston School Forest. So I would like to remind us that non-formal learning spaces are all around us here in Wisconsin and beyond if you're joining us from elsewhere. I think it was Upham Woods in 2014 published this map. It's just a Google map, but really super useful of the nature and environmental education centers here in Wisconsin. It's a sweet data set that is available to you, and Gina's going to be sharing it in the chat. We also have lots of other non-formal spaces in the form of school forests, and our partner program in the WCEE, Wisconsin's forestry education program, is a really robust program that is supported through the DNR and implemented at LEAF. where they support 251 school districts and 426 registered school forests throughout Wisconsin, both public and in private schools. Schools with registered school forests receive free forest management assistance from a DNR forester. They also get free tree seedlings from the DNR nursery for planting, and they get assistance from LEAF staff for school forest education. They become a part of a network of school forest educators that help each other throughout the state. And it's something that you can be proud of doing. So if you are part of a school or school district that is interested in having a school forest and you don't yet, I strongly encourage you to get in touch with Gretchen or any of the other excellent LEAF staff, including Gina, who has a split position between LEAF and KEEP. And their online map is also based in Esri GIS, just like the KEEP solar dashboard map that we'll be getting into in a moment. But it's really nice. You can zoom in on it. You can click on a particular polygon and get information at like the year that it was registered, if the school forest is on site with the school or if it's off site, because many of the school forests are, like Boston School Forest, whether there's surface water there or not, and other information as well. Another place we have informal or non-formal learning spaces in Wisconsin is any schoolyard or any city park. So this is a screenshot of all the locations of all the public schools in Wisconsin. Of course, we have another 1,000, 1,200 schools, private schools in Wisconsin in addition to these. And shown here every school has a schoolyard of some sort. That is also another non-formal learning space that is available to us. So to get into our training today, the purpose of this training is really to give an opportunity for those of you who are present here to network with each other as you're doing that, building skills and capacity to be inspired by each other, to have the opportunity to ask questions, and as Carla is presenting, to get an example of what is working and what is successful in one of the non-formal education settings here in Wisconsin. We're going to be interpreting solar panel array production graphs as we go through this, looking at the KEEP lesson that we have on solar dashboard exploration. Really, hopefully you guys will have questions and be able to share with us some of the questions you might ask students that you're working with, what they would think about if they're in a non-formal setting and as it relates to energy production, energy distribution, and renewable energy. Before I go on, I'm wondering if there are any questions, and if, while Gina looks to see if people have raised their hands or put something in the chat, I will try to get your faces back on my screen here. Are we good to go?
I believe we're good to go.
All right, thank you. So our featured lesson for today is was shared with you in the confirmation email, and I believe is being shared with you in the chat right now. This is a lesson that is available to you to adapt and use as you would want to in your education setting. Let me go here because I have it in the layout that I wanted in. There we go. It's in view only when you receive it, so you're welcome to make a copy of it if you would like to. And I just would like to introduce you sort of to what the layout of the lesson and of most of our lessons that are in the Google space from KEEP are. So we have the title slide that you can use. There are notes to teachers, and anything with this little icon in the bottom right-hand corner is a slide that if you were using these slides with your students, you would want to remove. These are messages to the educator, as well as the standards that this lesson supports. And then an overview of the lesson and objectives that you would share with your students. In this particular lesson, we first go into what is a dashboard, and then specifically what is a solar dashboard, because in society in general, we have dashboards all around us. Students are interacting with them every time they use a microwave, even like they're familiar with dashboards. So it doesn't have to be something scary and unfamiliar. It's just kind of that hookup. You're using the stuff all the time anyhow. You look at the weather, you look at your phone, whatever. You look at the scoreboard when you're at the game. And then we have a nice map of schools that have solar dashboards in Wisconsin. And so even if you're in a space that does not have solar yet, or it has solar and you don't know what the URL for accessing the dashboard is, you can come to this slide and access any of, I think it's like 5 dozen different solar dashboards that are in educational settings as well. And then we use the 5 E's in our lesson setup. So engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. And you'll see that those appear in that order here, with opportunities for discussion questions that are nested in there to sort of pause the lesson, get students to reflect on what they're thinking about, what they're learning. And then in the lesson, we also have a featured, here we have the solar energy technician, which is because it's particularly relevant to this lesson. But we also have a series of 7 different energy career videos that we have developed with Slipstream that you can choose from as well to guide your students into exploring careers in clean energy, so to sort of expand on this lesson. And finally, we really would appreciate not only for this training, and we're going to ask you to evaluate the training at the end here, but if you use the lesson, we would really appreciate if you would give us your feedback on the lesson itself if you implement it, because that is really helpful for us to know about that. So I'm going to just jump over to one of our first, one of the slides here where we would go in and look at, let me bigify this. So in this engage here, we're going to take a look. I'm just going to take a quick snapshot and then we'll transition over to Carla. And if there's time, come back and explore the solar dashboard that we share in our lesson a bit more. But for example, here we have how much electricity does a solar power system produce? And the dashboard that we link to is on a Sunny Portal platform. That's a mouthful to say here. And in this particular platform, so there's different solar arrays are going to have different types of hardware that convey the data from the solar arrays. The Sunny Portal lays it out in this way, where it gives you an overview, what the system size is, what the approximate annual production is, the CO2 that's avoided. So that would be inaccurate because so they're not pulling that data, because if it's working, it's offsetting some carbon dioxide there. And then it gives also some more information, like where the location is. The data that we want to take a look at for these arrays, and this particular one is energy and power. So we're looking at the day here. We can scale out and look at different time periods as well. So how much energy was produced in a month, in a year, and in the lifetime. We can also dig down, this is missing some data here, but we can see here, so just automatically one question would be like, why does 2022 have so little energy compared to 2021? Of course, we're only in February here. So it's an opportunity to ask a really simple question depending on the age group that you're working with, or we can compare 2019 to 2021. There's some simple and there's some more complex questions, of course, that can come out of this. And the gearbox is also available for going out, and you can take a look at it in bigger form. And there are other ways of digging around that we can take a look at as we go along here. So I'm going to go back here to the presentation, and I'm going to transfer over and give us just a moment here for Carla to start sharing her screen and tell us all about the work that she is doing there.
Yeah, thank you. And I've not ever like co-hosted one of these. So can I just get to know who I'm talking to real quick? Because then I've got lots to say, but I can kind of like tailor it to what you want to know. So I know the Keep folks. So Katie, John, Gerald, or Nicole, would any of you want to, let's just say like what facility you're from or school district? And if you don't, that's okay too.
I can go first. So I'm Katie Flannery. I use she, her pronouns, and I work for the Eco Justice Center in Racine, Wisconsin. I'm our education program manager here.
Awesome.
I just started last February, so coming up on a year in this role. And we do have solar panels on site as well as a wind turbine. So we're looking at expanding informal renewable energy curriculums and whatnot. So just here to learn. I'm new to teaching about solar, so anything I can absorb here would be awesome.
Perfect. You're perfect. So
cool.
Great.
Great to meet you.
You too. All right, John, thank you very much. Dropping them in the chat.
Yeah, so I am Nicole Filiatro. I work for Forest County Potawatomi, and I am their environmental educator. And we are currently looking into opening up an outdoor learning center here for our tribal members, and we are kind of trying to incorporate some solar technology to bring to the kids, and so they can interact with it. So just trying to get more of a grasp.
So that's exactly where I was about a year and a half ago. We've done a solar energy. So like, I'll back up. So like Samara had said, we see every kid in our Stevens Point area public school district, 4K through 10th grade. And the 6th grade was sort of that niche where we talked about renewable energy. And one of the great activities that we used to have the kids do was build these solar Lego cars, and then we'd race them outside on a track. And so we had all 6 kids working together at the same little 4x4 table, using the same parts, breathing in the same cube of space. And then last year, it's like, oh man, we cannot do that. Like, we cannot have 6 kids breathing in that same little space, touching all the same touchy stuff. So like, there's got to be a better way or another way to teach solar energy. So I called my helpful friends over at the Keep office, and I was like, hey, I need something all outside, socially distant, fun, exciting, to teach them about solar energy that needs a little STEM vibe. What do you got for me? And they were like, oh my gosh, we're actually working on something just like that. And I'm like, great, let me know when I can try it out. So Stephanie, who's on the call, was a grad student at that point. Melissa was helping, Amy Baker was helping, like great minds working together. And we came up with this really, really fun lesson. And we piloted it last year with 23 different 6th grade classes, which was almost 500 kids. Okay, share. And so it's really a lot of fun. So in a nutshell, the lesson is really broken up into 2 parts. And each part is about an hour long, or could be about an hour long, although you can kind of, take from one or the other too, depending on your group of kids. And so the first one kind of asks, how do solar panels work? And the second part of the lesson is like, what's the best place for solar panels, and kind of doing the career of a solar site assessor or a solar technician. And so these can be flip-flopped around too. So one doesn't have to be taught before the other one. So when we have a group of 36th graders come out, I love breaking those 2 groups up into 15 and then really getting to know my 15 really well, and being able to have better conversations than if you've got a class of 30 and not everybody is being heard at that point. So when I shared my screen, all your pictures went away. So if somebody has a question, I think you have to just unmute and interrupt, please do. And so how do the solar panels work? That part of the lesson was actually right by our solar panels, and I'll show you that in a minute. We gave them some time for observation and inquiry. We'll do a demonstration with movement that I'll show you a video of. We have some different considerations for the sky conditions. I've got storm clouds and sunny poster boards behind me. And then we debrief the activity and then bridge to that dashboard piece and then interpret that graphs. So when we take a look at our site here, we have our solar panels, that's 148 feet long. And we actually taught everything outside all of last year. The only times that we came inside is when it was thundering and lightning or if people had used the bathroom. We did eat indoors December and January, but this is where we taught our lesson. Old chairs can be socially distanced. And it was right by our solar panels, which was cool. Those skis that are lining the back of the solar panel have a really great story. That was actually an Eagle Scout project. The skis do three things. In winter, this is where we have our fourth graders actually put on and take off their cross-country skis. So it's the beginning and the end of our ski loops. So when we say, go back to the ski fence, everybody knows where it is. All of those skis were destined for the landfill because they are no longer in working condition. So we kept them out of the landfill. And it also provides some backing on our solar panels. So kids weren't like trying to run underneath there and play hide and seek and whatever. I mean, they still kind of do sometimes, but so anyways, it was really nice to have the whole lesson kind of out there right by the solar panels. And so after we did a little bit of an introduction, since all of our kids are Stevens Point Public School District kids, but we have 9 elementary schools and like 22 to 24 different 6th grade teachers, depending on the year. So everybody teaches a little bit different or at a little bit different time. And so we didn't even know if some kids even knew what an electron was. And so we would actually use this time to also kind of gather what they know. And then we just brought them out to the solar panels and they could just ask questions. Sometimes we'd give them just like a light bulb and we're like, okay, go make it work. And so they'd try to like find a spot on the solar panel where the light bulb would work. And of course it wasn't. So we're like, okay, there's gotta be something else that's happening here. But sometimes we'll have just little, those little Christmas solar lights, you know, they have the little mini portable panel. So we'll play around with those a little bit and just getting them to kind of ask questions of like, how is this working or what happens with this? Whoop, hold on. So other materials that we use for this outdoor portion is these little cutouts here with the puffy cloud, the sun, and then the stormy cloud. We use some of these like flagging and some cones. And then we broke down and we bought an electrical powered, one of those wavy green arm guys that are just, oh, they're so fun. And then we needed wooden stakes and an extension cord. So the way that I don't know if that, yeah. So the way that we set this up, I don't know if I can pause this here, is actually our panels where this is the two. So in the solar panels, there's like 2 layers of solar panels, right? And so there's electrons on the negative side and the positive side. And so we made this as like a sandwiched part of the 2 layers of our solar panel. And so then the kids are going to go inside here and they're going to be electrons. And so, you know, we're telling 6th graders who are, you know, kind of getting to that point where they're kind of cool, you know, they're like, wait, you want us to like bump around? And then sometimes it turns into this giant mosh pit and you're like, ah. So anyways, we try to explain that and we set it out with cones. So the kids get the idea that they're in a solar panel. And we start out at night, you know, it's dark, there's no sun, there's no energy. So they start out kind of, you know, just moving just a very, very little bit. And so the setup, if you're looking at setting this up near your solar panels, or whether you're looking at setting it up in your, you know, in a schoolyard or something, you can use pretty much anything. You can use wooden stakes. These are actually metal stakes and T-post covers that I had just laying at my farm. I just had extra stuff like that. We did end up having to run an extension cord down. I don't know if you can see the green wavy guy, that's down there. So when the sun actually does come up and those kids move, then you quick like hit the switch on the green wavy guy and they're like, wait a minute, there's something powering. And then they all like give them a high five on the way by. So right away on this video, you can see the teacher. We always give the teacher the sunny board. And so what happens is we'll say, okay, it's early morning. And so then she starts to raise it and then everybody starts to move a little bit faster. And then once they get moving really fast, then they bump out into the system and they have to make a complete circuit around, which is simulating what electrons actually do when they become energized from the photons of the sun. Hitting the solar panels. And so they give that little green guy a high five on the way through as they transfer their energy down and around. And then they head back into the circuit. So one of our very first questions is, okay, how many of you got lost? No one got lost? Every electron that left the circuit is now back in it? Oh, okay, so that's a really cool thing, because in solar panels, there's no loss of electrons versus like when you're burning fossil fuel, you're actually losing that, right, as heat, and it dissipates, and so you never get that back. So that's a really cool question. The other question that we have that we ask them is, on the sunny days, they've got to run, like they're supposed to be sprinting that around. Clearly not everybody made it as a sprint all the way around, but we are coming off of a pandemic. So everybody, you're supposed to sprint around. So when everybody gets back, I'm like, how are you feeling? Yeah, it was tiring. I am tired. So you used a lot of energy when it was sunny. Well, the cool thing about our solar panels is it's making a lot of energy when it is sunny. And so then the next one will be like cloud over the sun. And so that's more of like a walk. And so they come back, we're like, how tired are you? I'm not as tired. I didn't use as much energy. Right, because on cloudy days, we don't make as much energy. You know, so it's kind of really neat that we can take their energy level that they use doing this sort of relay race around with how much energy is actually produced by solar panels, giving it the weather considerations, and then also the daytime considerations. Since you move slower in the morning and the evening, we tell them they move slower in the morning and the evening, and then the fastest ones move in the middle of the day. So then there's so many different ways to introduce the graphs, and we have them printed out as well for students, because when we're outside, I really try to keep the technology off or to a minimum. And that's why this post-visit activity that teachers can do in their classrooms that Gina will share is so important. So we have these, and so sometimes I'll just have them work in like 3 smaller groups or more, and they get one of these. And sometimes I have it roving, you know, where they get a chance to visit all of the different ones. And so for ours, I guess I'll start since this one's on the screen. This is the month of April. Since all of our 6th graders come out in April, this is the month of April from back in 2015. But we can start to look at this graph and we can ask, okay, what do we know that's being produced and where, like what's on the, so we talk about y-axis, x-axis. We'll talk about, and we actually will look at asking questions in different categories. Making a prediction, making observations, reading the data, how to make an inference, and making connections. And so we don't always stick to those questions there, but we found that a lot of times standardized tests that those kids are expected to answer questions on, future ACT style questions, are all kind of lumped into those sort of 5 or 6 categories of questions. And then I love answering or asking them the question like, what do you think today's is? You know, when we look at this graph, you know, what do you think today? Do you think today would be average, above average, below average, that type of thing? So our other graphs that we have, okay, there we go. And we do have questions specific for each of those, but they are in the same general categories. So again, you can get all of this live on our Sunny portal as well, but we like to be able to have them printed off and laminated. Let's go back real quick. I'm just going to stop share real fast, and I want to be able to answer any questions on that first part. These are our inverter boxes. So I was going to do this out with the solar panels, but I've already been outside all day today and I love it. I mean, I still have my snow pants on, but the Wi-Fi wasn't working super well out by the solar panels. And so I decided to sit by the inverter boxes instead.
I wanted to share, so I actually used the same activity that you did where the students are electrons at several of the teacher trainings we did this year to share that with them. And like you, I ended up printing up the graphs, even though the solar dashboards are available and, you know, we could have used them in the classroom, but when you're outside doing this activity or even just standing up in the classroom and doing it, it's nice to have a break from the screen. The data from the dashboards is great if you're doing remote learning or if there's a specific lesson tied around it, but I like having the data printed up as well. I wanted to share that experience.
And I do like introducing the graph and like how to read the graph, because if you just give them the Sunny portal and say, hey, I want you to explore this and find this out, that might work for high school kids. But when we work with our 6th graders, they still don't understand all the time, what's a y-axis, what's an x-axis, what is this actually showing? So to give them that actual instruction on their field trip, I think is really good, because it sets it up for the teacher to have more success in their classroom when they go back, and then they have a little bit more free time. And we're a 1-to-1 school district, so everybody's got a device. So they're able to go on and just kind of find, hey, what's my birthday? How much energy is made on my birthday, and those types of things as well. Okay, well then I'm going to go back and I want to talk briefly about the second part of this lesson, which I absolutely love. And it's called we call it being a renewable energy technician. So we're actually going to give them a job at this point. We're looking, like, possibly in the future, looking at putting in new solar panels or a tracking array system out by our adventure education site, which we have archery, we have a little amphitheater with a stage out there, and then we also have our high ropes course out there. And so we're looking at a little tracking array just to provide us with some evening lighting, or maybe some dusk to dawn type lighting or whatnot. And so I asked the kids, I'm like, we're gonna put you to work. I need your help. This forest was built by kids for kids. Like, I need your help on figuring out, where does our next solar panels go? And so right away, it adds that authenticity to the assignment. You know, they're like, okay, I'm helping out. Like, I've been here for 7 years in a row, or 8 years if they came as a 4K kid. Now I get a chance to help out. And so we have to talk about, well, what are some important things about a solar energy site? And so we talked about, if we did the solar relay race part first, we're like, so what did you notice about that area? And usually they're like, well, there's no trees, it's lots of sunny, you know, so we just kind of brainstorm some of those things. And then I introduced to them the equipment. And so I absolutely love the equipment. Last year, because this was the first year we were running this, we actually checked out all of this equipment from the Wisconsin Center for Environmental Education kits. They let us check things out. And then we loved it so much that we ended up writing a grant to Cellcom. That Cellcom has green gift grants. And so we were able to get all of our own equipment moving forward, which frees up the equipment for any of you to check out in the month of April. So we give the kids a light meter, we turn it on, and we talk about the units, because this has foot candles, kilo foot candles, lumens, and a whole bunch of different units. So we try to all figure out what units we're supposed to be on and which one we use. And we do use kilo foot candles, or KFC, which is really easy for kids to remember because of Kentucky Fried Chicken. So then we also have infrared thermometers. So we talk about how to use those and which 2 units, and then decide on a unit, or sometimes I already decide for them. And then we have these amazing wind manometers and anemometers. Final answer. And it's just really important not to tell the kids not to blow into these, because that is not how they are designed for. But then we also have like a little canopy cup, we call it. I would love to get a densiometer, but those are like $150 a piece. And I don't know that I'm going to do that. But anyway, so we just have this little cup that they like estimate the canopy cover right above them. So basically, and then they have a clipboard on their data sheet, and then we send them out to 5 different sites. So usually we've got 5 groups. And so we'll send them out, and each of the sites is marked, and it has a name, and there's a map on the back, and then they're out there for a while. And also on the data sheet, there's a thoughts and ideas. So if you scream through and you get all of your numbers, just sit there for a little bit and ask yourself, or ask each other, would this make a really good solar site? Yes, no, maybe so, why? And so then I'll whistle, and then they all go to the next spot. After I send them out to the first one, I usually do bring them back just to make sure our data is like reasonable, because sometimes it's like, I got 1,075,000 KFCs. No, you didn't. So let's figure out why you didn't, and then like send you off to your next site. So the coolest thing is, so then they hit up all 5 sites, and then they come back to our little amphitheater bench stage area. And they work with their groups, and you hear them talking. Because now I've asked them to say, now pick your one. What is your best one? What one do you think is the best for solar? And then last year we also did wind, but I don't know that we're going to do wind at this point. So which one? And then they stand up on the little stage and they present it to everybody else. Everybody claps, and I collect all of them, and I thank them so much. And they're like, wait, which one won? I'm like, won what? And they're like, well, which one won? Which one is right? Which one is the best? I'm like, well, there's no best. You collected data, you talked about your data, and you presented to me. Like, there's not a best, there's not a winner. This is all, information that I'm gathering. So then it's almost like, oh, wait, so it's just information? Yeah, it's information. I'm not picking a winner. So anyways, I thought that was just a really interesting thing, that every year they want me to pick a winner. So then we talk about the career, and we link this into the career. Like, how many of you could see that you doing this for a career? And there's always kids in every class. I mean, not everybody, and not even half, but like a handful that are like, yeah, I could do this for my job. I love this activity. But like, there is a career for you. Like, this is actually a thing, and it's in Wisconsin Rapids. You can get a degree as a solar resource technician. And so then we talk with the teacher, and we are like, they're really excited about this. And now they've got this amazing post-visit activity that I'm going to flip it over to Gina for Gina to share. And we did a workshop for our 6th grade teachers on this post-visit activity. And we're really excited to use that this April and really kind of solidify so that this field trip isn't a standalone field trip anymore. It's more of like, okay, so now we get to go back and kind of play around with the actual data using our Chromebook devices and ask some more questions.
So this is the lesson that I introduced to the 6th grade teachers and did an in-service with them on to hopefully encourage their confidence and comfort level with using it when they go back to their classrooms. And so what they're going to do is they're going to look at different weather conditions and then think back to the day they were at Boston School Forest and the actual weather that happened on that day and try to, guess what you think it was like. So here in this one, it's introducing the idea of solar panel capacity. And you want to look at, which type of weather situation do you think, is going to produce the most solar power. They then can click on the different cards. You look at the next screen and I think I'm going to go out of present mode and into this view because I think that's a little easier for you to follow. But each one of these cards is linked to a number that represents the level of solar generation. And so the first one, we're just looking at what the weather is like. And then in the second one, we're taking a look in the different colors, the blue, the green, the orange, and the yellow represent different times of day. And that's how the class interaction comes into play. So if I scroll down here and I will click on this slide and present it, this shows that there are different columns based on the time of day. So the blue is the early morning and the later in the day. The green would be kind of mid-morning and getting towards the peak of the afternoon. Orange is late morning, early afternoon, and the yellow is 1 o'clock. So when the sun is, close to the highest that is in the sky. And so what they're going to do is guess, when they think the energy production will be the highest, when it would be the lowest. And if I go back out, as they guess, anytime you click on any of the links, it will show the corresponding value. So they start to get an understanding of the level of change that takes place throughout the day based on the weather conditions and the time of the day that the solar panels are being used. Then after that, they go through a simulation. And so I'm going to share the larger screen here so you can see better. But they each have a different role. So students will be the times of day. Some students will be a cloud. Some students would be the sun. And then you have people who are recording. And we go to the slideshow and read through a scenario. And as the kids read through the scenario, they model the changes. So if I go back out into the panels here, scenario 1 describes a beautiful day. The sun rises at 7:14, at 8:30. As the sun begins to climb, the panels anxiously await. Notice how the sun is low in the sky with no clouds blocking it. So at that time, they're recording what they think the solar production would be based on early in the morning, low in the sky sun, but no clouds. By 10 a.m., the panels are humming with the rays they can reach. Not a cloud can be seen. And so you go throughout the scenario, and I'm not going to click, there's lots of different language there, but you go throughout the scenario and it tells you what the day is going to be like. And I will show you when I'm done, but I have a data table that's laminated for each of them. So the recorder can record that throughout the day as they're going. Then they take a look at scenario 2. And scenario 2 is a different one in which, it's not sunny the whole time. This one has a lot more clouds. They're thick across the sky. And you look at how the weather conditions for this day impact the solar output of the panels. Then the third scenario is make up your mind. And I instructed the teachers there that if you only have time for one scenario, this is the best scenario to do because it talks about days that are similar to many Wisconsin days where Sometimes the sun is out and then it ducks behind a cloud and then it might come out again. Sometimes it might be partly cloudy, sometimes it might be completely overcast, and you look at how the change in the solar panel would take place throughout that day. Afterwards, we go through and answer questions, and we look at the graphs, and we determine which one of the graphs would represent, and this one shows all of them together, which graph would represent the beautiful fall day, which graph would be the sun will come out, and which one would be make up your mind. And if you look, obviously the graph that's entirely filled in all throughout the day is the beautiful day. The graph that has very little production throughout the day is the sun will come out. And the make up your mind shows peaks and valleys in that graph of production throughout the day. But it can lead to some interesting conversations on how even on the days when it's peaks and valleys, those valleys still have energy production taking place. And even in letter C, in the sun will come out, you can see that there are still on cloudy days some energy production accomplished by the solar panels. This lesson also has a featured career at the end. Oh, I did skip over, sorry. There are other further questions where they go back and look at think back to what the day was like when they were at Boston School Forest and determine if any of these graphs might look like the one that they thought would have taken place the day they were at the forest, because they're there, for much of the day, so they could think about it. It asks them to draw the graph and compare it, and then actually looks at the data for the actual date that they were at Boston School Forest. It asks them to do a few other things, looking at how many households or how much electricity the average American households use to determine if Boston School Forest could produce enough electricity to power them. And then it also talks about what do you do if you don't produce enough power to meet your energy needs, and asks kids to think of ideas for that, either conservation or finding other renewable sources of energy. And then, as I had mentioned before, the link to the featured career links to other KEEP lessons and other curriculum extensions, so that if kids maybe didn't quite understand, because when they're at the Boston School Forest, they're outdoors and excited and there's a lot of energy, and sometimes hearing some of these things with the graphs and this information and using the data can sink in then when they're back in the classroom and applying it there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen a minute, and I don't know, can you guys see me? Because I just see Samara.
Yeah, we can see you.
So I have slides in Google Drive where a kid could type into here and put it on the smartboard, but we also laminated ones that I have to get to Carla and the teachers to use this April, where they can track it as they're going throughout the day. And then we just laminated a sunshine so the person can be out with the sun. And then we have two clouds. So one would be for partly cloudy, one would be for totally cloudy, and those students would move. So if you have kids that need to move around a little during a lesson, it's great. They can be, these ones that move. And then other students that are around the room are given a time and a color card to show, where the sun is in the position. And the idea is to have it arc around so that you're tracking how the sun goes throughout the sky. And the colors of the times match the colors that are in the slideshow presentation to help kids make that connection. So that's kind of a quick rundown of it. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I'm wondering that the laminated things that we have, is that something somebody could check out from KEEP, or are there files available where they could download it and print up their own?
I have files available that I will share that they could download and print out their own, and we definitely could make it into something that could be checked out through KEEP as well.
Recording it, and for those who are still online, in addition to doing the workshop evaluation, we'd like to remind you as well that KEEP does have other professional development opportunities that you can find online. We encourage you to join us for those. We have some in-person things that'll be coming up, but most are online. and loads of curriculum for you to dive into and explore, as well as mentioned earlier during the training, we have trunks and kits that can be borrowed from us. And we'd love for you to follow us on our social media to stay connected, tell us your stories, share your pictures, let us know how you're implementing this in your teaching spaces. And we thank you all very much for joining us for this training.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to
Thanks
see you
for
all.
putting this together, folks.